Her father always did when the kids were sitting around the dinner table every night was he asked, what did you fail at today? And he didn't ask that in a bad way. He asked that in an encouraging, fun way. So then the kids would say, oh, I tried this and it didn't work, but I learned this from it. Or I tried this and it didn't work, but I feel okay because I'm going to try again tomorrow. Reframing failure as something that's good because they're expanding themselves and they're pushing themselves and they're trying and they're believing in their possibilities. She attributes a lot of why she had that hustle and why she was able to grow that amazing company that she has today.
Welcome everybody to Heighten Your Success with Shaun Green. I got Miss Brenda Doe here. She is a children's book author and she is often described as Brené Brown, meets Dr. Seuss. Her work empowers kids to overcome self-doubt, embrace curiosity, and discover just how powerful they are. So again, Ms. Brenda, I've been really excited and looking forward to speaking with you. I'm just happy that you want to be on this Heighten Your Success and be a part of the family and just come to the show and just and bless the tribe, with your wisdom and knowledge and understanding about, what motivates you and what drives you, and just, tell us about a little bit about your background and your passions and what really, gets your fire going. So again, welcome to the show.
Why, thanks. Well, Shaun, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. And I love the title of it, Heighten Your Sixth Sense, because to me, that's innately what should be running the show. How you should be guiding your life is through your sixth sense. And to me, the sixth sense is your intuition, your heart. I always say you should feel with your mind more and think with your heart more. Opposite of what most people think. And so what motivates me is actually helping people do just that. Living from your heart space, believing in yourself, having self-love, and uplifting others as during your journey. And then so when I wrote this children's book, I was like, how can you teach those big concepts to little kids? And the biggest thing is the title of the book is It's Okay Not to Know. And it's teaching kids how to overcome challenges instead of thinking, oh, I can't do something, I'm not smart enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not whatever enough. Instead, they're thinking, oh, hey, I can't figure this out yet. How can I do it, right? So then they're being more curious. Instead of judging themselves, they're being more compassionate. And they're learning how to expand their world and understand what's possible for them by acting like that and feeling with their heart instead of going into judgment mode. And then by doing that, when they see someone else struggling, they can help uplift them as well. So when you talk about a tribe, that's how I look at it. I'm trying to help people bring themselves up, bring others up, and create all more love in the world as well. But all of it starts with loving yourself first. And that starts, you got to teach kids that from the womb and before they even come out, and just keep helping kids, remember that message. And then so that way as an adult, you're not so hard on yourself and you remember that message. So I'm not saying that you stop moving, stop expanding, and stop learning. It's more so when you hit those roadblocks, you know how to get yourself out of them, through them, past them, and to see how powerful you really are as a result.
Yeah, that's true. Because if you have that belief and that love, that inner love for yourself, you want to allow the outer expression and outer things, people's opinions and thoughts and the worries and the anxiety, all that stuff, be such a burden and weight on your shoulder, and but not on your shoulder, but a weight on your mind, because people, I feel like the weakness most time is, especially in kids and even adults, is the mind, because you get too much in your head about what the judgment, what people think, how they feel. But when we always overlook, what do we think and how do we feel?
Exactly. You touched on a really good point there too. Is because if we're always looking outside of ourselves to prove who we are and to get validation of who we think we should be or who we are, then we're always going to be disappointed. We're always going to be searching for that validation. So no matter what degree you get, no matter what job you have, no matter what car you drive or how much money you make, it's never going to be enough, because there's always going to be someone else who does something even more. And you're always going to think, oh, I got to be as good as them or better. So you're always chasing. And so you're always, as subconsciously, as you keep chasing outside, you're always telling yourself, I'm not enough. And that's a horrible thing to do and feel.
Yeah, exactly. Comparing. That's one. I mean, we all guilty of it, I believe. Because it's just part of way the society is. But if you get too caught up in always looking at this other person, or this is a little bit better than me, or they got a little bit more, you're never gonna be grateful or or happy or satisfied with what you have and where you at.
Yeah.
And the journey you on, because everybody's journey is different. Everybody's at different levels.
Exactly.
I don't think, nobody's necessarily the better or less than, or, it's just everybody's at different levels on this same journey. And, granted, some people may be smarter, or they may have been blessed with, come from a family that had a lot of money, and they had kind of a jump on people to do certain things and be in certain places and certain environments. But no matter where you at now, it doesn't mean that in a year or 2 or 3 or whatever that you could be with that same person you comparing you. You could be surpass them. So it's just like you just gotta focus on what it is you love, and focus on basically loving yourself, and just appreciating just going through the journey, the small wins and the steps every day. So that's how I look at it, at least.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've heard some people say, well, if you're going to be that loving towards yourself and you think you're great now, then you're going to get complacent and you're not going to push yourself enough. And I was like, that's not true. That's a belief, but it's not necessarily true. Because you don't have that self-doubt, you're willing to take more risks. You're willing to push yourself further. You're willing to try things and do things that you didn't think you could do, because you don't worry about failing. Instead, you're seeing, oh, how can I win? Instead of, oh, geez, I can't fail. So it actually frees you to do more.
You think about the solution. Yeah, you think about the solution. What's the solution? How do I get to the next step? Instead of thinking about, oh, the next step is too hard. You got I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna figure it out.
It's like that growth mindset that schools are trying to teach kids versus the fixed mindset. And this is teaching kids the same thing. It's the growth mindset. And then the thing is, if you don't learn it as a kid, it's really hard to learn it as an adult. I'm not saying you can't, because neuroplasticity blesses us with the fact that we can learn anything at any age. As long as we're still breathing, it's not too late.
We can rewire our minds.
Exactly. So if we can learn it earlier, think about how much more you can achieve throughout your life. All the fun, love, and happiness and joy and whatever that brings you joy you can have if you start younger, right? However, as an adult, definitely. If you haven't learned it yet, it's not too late.
Yeah, that's true. But you're right. When you was earlier, you were talking about the children is so crucial, because that first 5 to 7 years, that's when that you're building the paradigm for a person. And sometimes if there was if it was built in a way that is a lot of trauma, and it's just a lot of lack of confidence, and a lot of lack of doubt and things of that nature, and and the esteem is not on the high level, they can usually that person that they're gonna be that same way their whole life, But if you can rewire that and rebuild it in the way you express in the principle in your book and what you're speaking of, that the life of that person could be a beautiful scene. It could be so much better.
Exactly.
Without the struggle and the trauma and all that things and the anxiety.
Yep, I totally agree. Because you are not your past. You are what you decide to be now. And if what's happening now doesn't feel good enough, well, there's also this now. Every second is a new now, so it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
So every second you have a new opportunity. So I have very little patience for the victim mentality. Now, I come from immigrant parents. English is my second language. All that kind of stuff. We struggled a lot. We were poor. There were days when we didn't eat. However, that wasn't my past. That's my past. That's not who I am now. Because I choose to let that go. I learn from it, take what helps me from it, and I move forward. It's like keep focusing on what you want, not what you don't want, which is such a different mentality. I was talking to a friend of mine who is a business owner, and he called me one day just freaking out. He goes, I need you to talk me off the ledge. He just goes, because I think I'm going to get sued. I had this customer who did this, right? And then he was so busy freaking out, worried about being sued. I asked him, what do you want? Well, I don't want to be sued. What do you want then? Well, I don't want my business to go away. I go, what do you want? Well, I don't want to have my reputation go down. I asked him 5 times, what do you want? And all he kept telling me is everything he didn't want. And that is how most of us are programmed. We're always worried about things. We're always focused on what we don't want. And guess what? That's what we end up creating. So by knowing yourself, by learning how to overcome obstacles, you are able to focus on what you do want, and that's what you're going to keep creating, is what you want, not what you don't want. And it's a huge mindset shift for a lot of people, and it's possible. It's just building that muscle, learning to focus on what you want.
That's
on
true.
the positive side.
That's good. You brought focus. So, and I know a lot of this, I guess the building, the catalyst for the building blocks of what may cause problems with children's self-confidence and self-esteem, maybe the parents. So I know many parents focus on outcomes and achievements. Why is celebrating effort more powerful for building resilience in kids?
Let me start by telling a story, if I can. So I like how you asked that question, because to me, outcomes eventually come, the outcomes that you want, but you have to celebrate achievements first, because that's where the growth mindset, not achievements, sorry, effort. So, for example, let me start with, there's a psychologist from Stanford, Dr. Carol Dweck, and she's the one who coined the growth mindset. So she started these studies years ago with children, and I'm going to give you a really abridged version, and I apologize if I get the little facts wrong, but the gist of it is she had a classroom divided into 2 different groups randomly. One group, she said, she gave a test to, and then when they got the results back, all these kids in that group were told, wow, you're so smart. Look how well you did. The other group, she gave the same test to, and when they got the results back, their feedback was, wow, you tried so hard. Look how good you are at figuring things out. So then afterwards, she gave that classroom, both groups, another test that was much harder. The group that was told, wow, you're so smart, when they came to a question they couldn't figure out, they either skipped it they skipped it most of the time. And then the kids that were told, wow, you're so good at figuring things out, you're so good at trying, they got the answers right, and they filled it all in. And so they ended up doing better on that harder test. So when they interviewed the kids who were supposedly the smart group, right? And they asked, hey, how come you didn't fill this out? They go, no, I did. They would either lie or say they didn't see it, or they would make up some kind of answer. And so, and it wasn't like they were lying because they're bad kids. What happened was they were told they're smart. And when they couldn't figure something out, they suddenly went, oh, wait a minute, that means I'm not smart if I can't figure this out. So I'm just going to pretend I don't see this question. I'm just going to go around it. Or I'm going to lie and say it. That way the teacher doesn't think that I'm dumb, because if they think I'm dumb, then that means I'm not lovable enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not enough in some way. So very quickly at that young age, they started to shrink their world already. They stayed in their lane. They didn't push themselves further. Whereas the kids with a growth mindset, they were the ones who weren't fearful. They were just like, I don't know, because they weren't worried about the outcome. They were focused on the effort. And so from that's my long way of saying that's why I really think that we should focus more on the effort instead of the outcome. You heard of Sarah Blakely, the
founder of Spanx.
Yeah. One of I listened to an interview that she gave years ago. And one of the things that she said that her father always did when the kids were sitting around the dinner table every night was he asked, what did you fail at today? And he didn't ask that in a bad way. He asked that in an encouraging, fun way. So then the kids would say, oh, I tried this and it didn't work, but I learned this from it. Or I tried this and it didn't work, but I feel okay because I'm going to try again tomorrow. Reframing failure as something that's good because they're expanding themselves and they're pushing themselves and they're trying and they're believing in their possibilities. She attributes a lot of why she had that hustle and why she was able to grow that amazing company that she has today.
Yeah, because I told her that just because you may fail at something or you may not, I guess do extraordinary at it, it don't mean that you stop. You figure it out. You keep moving to the next thing to keep focusing on to reach your goal, whatever that goal may be.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
But you can't do that if you're fearful. If you let someone else's label be your label.
Yeah,
if you
true.
let someone else tell you who you are and tell you what your limitations are. So that's why
pushing you to keep growing. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why well-meaning adults, we do things like put the A paper on the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And then so instead of the C. And what that tells the kid is, hey, if I don't get an A, I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable enough. Mom and dad doesn't love me, whatever it happens to be. You know, they start feeling that pressure and they start putting it on themselves and they start labeling themselves.
Dang. That's really deep. You know, because the right or wrong wording, it plants a seed, and then that seed is going to produce a future outcome.
Yeah.
You know, how can parents and teachers encourage like curiosity and self-compassion in kids, and like especially when we were talking about stressful moments, especially during like the stressful or challenging moments? How can they do that?
I think it would be the parents to be more self-aware. Because you cannot help a child if you're the one who's adding to all of that. If you don't have enough self-awareness to realize how you're hurting that child. Even though you mean the best, you're loving as possible, you're doing the best that you can, we can always do better. But we need to learn the tools. We need to have the skills. So seek out the skills. Understand the new ways of growth mindset and everything. I mean, I came from the era, especially with immigrant parents, where their idea of talking to you was smacking you. I mean, I never had a hug from my parents, right? Only time they ever touched me was to hit. That is just how we were taught. And then so I still remember like even my grandma, I couldn't understand because she spoke a different Chinese dialect than my parents did. And then so she would say something to me and it was a completely different language. She might as well speaking French. I mean, because I could not understand what she was saying. And then so what she would do is she would say it. I would look at her, and I was a little kid, I still remember this. And I was like, I don't understand. And she hit me against the head. And then she would say it again, even louder. And I'm just like, I don't understand. And she hit me again. Her idea was trying to teach me to understand was to whack it into me until like it suddenly would click, right? And it's a horrible way of learning. And I was thinking, or how my mom, I remember asking her years ago, I was like, why are you always so down on us kids, right? Why do you always say that we could do better when what we just gave you an A paper and you're saying, well, where's the A? There's always something that could be better. And I was like, how come you can't be happy for us for this? She goes, I'm doing it for your own good because I'm helping you push yourself. And she didn't wake up in the morning trying to think, how can I screw my kids up today? She really believed, based on what she was taught, this is how you parent. You know, and so when we do it unconsciously like that, and we keep pushing out the same stuff that we were taught that most likely didn't work for us, then we're not going to be able to help our kids. So we need to learn new skills.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because you're teaching them that, you know, it's never going to be enough. And basically, no matter how good you may be in this moment, in this situation, you always, you know, don't celebrate it. It's not enough. You got to keep, you know, pushing for more, you know.
But when you celebrate it, you know, the irony of it all is it's actually the opposite. The more you celebrate it and the more you encourage them to keep trying, the more they surprise you with bigger, better responses. If they should choose. And it's not for everyone. If a kid decides, I'm happy right out here doing this in this one space, then good on you. It's whatever makes the person happy. But if you know that they're calling it in because they're like, yeah, I'm just doing this because I'm lazy, you know, that's a judgment call. But if they're just saying, yeah, I don't want to try, figure out why they don't want to try. A lot of times they don't want to try because they don't believe they can. And that's what you want to get to. It's helping them understand. Yes, you can, but to do it from an encouraging perspective. Not the hit you against the head, you know. Thinking that somehow or other that's going to motivate you.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents are guilty of that, which is, it's not good. They don't teach. It's definitely not showing any love for sure, or making a person feel worthy. Yeah, making them definitely feel like less than.
And if you don't feel worthy, then you're not going to feel inspired to try because you don't think you're good enough to try, or you think that you're not the kind of person where, you know, life does good things to you, so you're just like, yeah, why bother? It's not going to work anyway.
Yeah, it is. That's so true. So what role does inclusive stories and characters play in shaping a child, do you think? A child's self-worth?
Yeah, I can speak from my own experience. So I grew up in the 70s, and even today, even though the books are a lot more inclusive now, they still have a long way to go, you know? And when I grew up, there wasn't a
You think?
single book in the library that had any character that looked like me.
Yeah. So it's not. You don't think it's better, that much better now versus
I think
the
it's a little
70s?
better. I don't think it's great. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we definitely have a lot more. We even have, full LGBTQ, genre books and everything else for kids, which is awesome. It's not enough though, because if you look at most bookstores, and then you look at most school libraries, or even county libraries or city libraries, you're not going to see a lot of diversity in the children's section. And so, at least I haven't, and I go to a lot of libraries, and so I haven't seen it. Because when you and then it's not just because the kids in the library aren't diverse. I mean, I don't care if it's an all-white neighborhood. It's just that you should be exposed to other cultures and other kids too. And that diversity comes in a lot of ways. It could also be assuming that most families have one man, one woman, both one mom, one dad. And not every family has that. And it's assuming that all kids have all four limbs. And not everyone has that, right? So diversity comes in so many different ways. And that's why when I grew up and I didn't see myself in any of the books, subconsciously, the message I got as a little kid is, oh, if I'm not white, that means I'm not enough. If I don't act and look more like the white kids, then that means I don't belong. So it starts feeding that message insidiously way earlier. And not every kid's gonna get that message, but that's what I noticed for myself. And then so when I wrote this book, I made sure that the illustrator Casey created a whole new world for me. And so I said, I don't want any humans. I want all kids to be able to relate to the character. So, create a fictitious world. So he created these, what I call my lovable little monsters. And the protagonist, their name is Bink. And they don't have a gender. That's why I call it they. And so their name is Bink. It's a little monster. So that way any person can relate to it because it doesn't have to look like them. And then also, as far as I know, Bink is a word that most kids from any cultural background can say. So I wanted this
It's the
book,
same no matter what culture.
yeah, no matter what your first language is, or hopefully not speech impediment or anything like that. As far as I know, it's just that's what most kids can actually say that word. So that's why, I thought hard about this when I created this, because I wanted to make sure that kids, no matter what their background, no matter what they're facing, can relate to the characters. So that way they can focus on the message.
Okay. Yep. That makes a lot of sense. It makes it really, diversify for anybody, no matter what culture, what gender, whatever. It doesn't matter. Everybody can be able to appreciate it and understand it. So I love that. That's really good. And so I know we've talked a lot about the book, but what's the best people can find your book and purchase it?
Well, they can find it anywhere. They can find it in any of their bookstores. If they don't see it on the shelves, they can just ask the person at the front desk to order it for them. They can get it on Amazon. My strongest suggestion, though, is to get it through my website, because it costs the less and costs the least amount, and also you get a much higher quality print. And you can get it through my website at brendadoe.com, and that's spelled BRENDADO.com. You can order it right there. My socials are right there too, so you can follow me, on Instagram, Pinterest, or Facebook. Okay. So that's where you can learn about the book, read the reviews. The therapists, educators, parents, I get amazing reviews, and I'm always so very grateful.
That's
the
beautiful.
ones that really resonate for me the most are when a parent sends me a message and says, oh my gosh, we had to go on this 10-hour road trip, and I told them to pick 3 books, and they picked yours. I don't know how many times I had to read it to them. And I was
You have to read it over and over again.
When a kid chooses the book, that's the best, because they get it. Right? So to me, I love all of my feedback from the parents and everything, and from the adults. But the ones that really mean the most to me are the ones from the kids, just by choosing the book and wanting to read it.
Yeah, I just love your passion and your I can tell you really care, and it's really is there really a true passion for you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Yes.
it really I can feel it and it shows. I really love that.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
I know you got short on time, so if a parent or educator could just do one thing today to help a child grow up feeling more confident or limitless, what should it be?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say teach them to love themselves instead of judge themselves.
Teach them to love themselves.
Practice self-love. And it could be anything. It really can. I mean, there was, my little niece was having the hardest time learning how to tie her shoes when she was little. And then so when she kept trying and trying, and the way the teachers were teaching her, a lot of the kids at school understood how to do it. And so she kept comparing herself to them and thinking, I'm so stupid because I can't figure it out and they can't. So she was getting so frustrated and having meltdowns. So what I did is I sat her down and I told her a story using the laces, and it ended up in a boat. And then so we just had to do it differently. And I had to calm her down and teach her that, hey, it's not about what you can do. Anyway, you can do it for sure. It's how you go about it. And then so by teaching her a story with the two laces, like a bunny running across a tree and all that kind of stuff, it ended up in a bow. She instantly got it, did it, and she was like, oh, that was easy. She just got up and walked away. That was the end of that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. And so, but that's a creative. It's so creative because stories always help paint a picture in the mind, and sometimes that's all people need. They just need to uh, be shown a bigger, brighter, bolder way of doing something. But sometimes you need to see a beautiful scenery in the mind to really bring it home to how to accomplish where you are going to accomplish.
Oh, I totally agree. Because science has shown that our brain thinks in stories. I mean, that's why Jesus talked in parables in the Bible. Stories are what sticks. Because you're not telling them how to think. You're not telling the person what to do. You're inviting them to consider something. And then so their defenses are down. Their creativity opens up. Their heart space opens up. So their mind opens up. So they're more willing to receive and try.
Yeah, but like I said, it's been a great episode. I know you said you're a little short on time, but I want to thank you, for coming to be a part of the Heighten Your Success and just blessing us, and and just what you're doing is just amazing. And just keep it up. Don't get discouraged. Just keep going. Keep fighting. I know every day is not easy, and you're just gonna just raise the vibration and also bring about a smile and confidence and make children appreciate being a child and be curious and let them know that no matter where they're at in the family situation, that they can be something great. And I think that's what you really are trying to do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. It was fun.
Yeah. No, thank you for coming on. And so, like I said, hope we can do this again in the very near future. And just looking forward to seeing where you're gonna go with your book and everything you're doing. And I just pray it goes to the moon.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you guys on the next episode of How You 6 Cents with Shaun Green, and much love to you, Brenda Doe, and everything you're doing. See you guys on the next episode.
Hugs to you too.
Thank you.